Hi, welcome to Wrokdown. I'm Wendy Stapleton. The year was 1980 and a very strange thing happened all around Australia. All you had to say was, "What's the matter you? Hey, gotta no respect. Hey." Well, who was responsible? Joe Dolce. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Wendy.
Hey, Joe. Thanks for coming in.
I'm doing a fine.
You're doing a fine?
No, I won't be talking in my real voice. I've been working with an American voice coach, so I want to try to break into American films. So I'm going to be practicing my American accent.
You're not doing bad. You're not doing bad. However, I was trying to do Jersey, and I think yours is Cleveland. Is that correct?
Yeah, Cleveland. They don't have accents in Cleveland. It's just
They don't?
now there were gangsters there, but the New Yorkers are more like, I don't know.
So you were born in Cleveland?
Yeah, near Cleveland.
Okay,
yes.
tell us a little bit about your childhood growing up in Cleveland, which is of course the home now to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
That's right. Cleveland was interesting. It was, it was one of those schools it was based around a football mentality, right? So if you weren't on the football team or a cheerleader, you were nothing. You just, no one even knew you existed, right? So most of us who liked other kinds of things like music and things, we basically were on the fringe, and even back in those days, and we didn't know it then, but we didn't think it was cool to be under fringe. We all wanted to be jocks, right? But we just had this resistance to that mentality, which now I understand why. But anyway, so growing up in that kind of Italian family in a small town, where my family pronounced my name Dolce, like Mersey Dolce and Dolzy Dolce. They used to kid me with that when I was in school, little Amsy Divey, And because they didn't want to stand out and be Dolce or the way you're supposed to pronounce it. So trying to blend in. A lot of Greeks do that here. They change Kapalapalapalapalopoulos to like Smith. Or
Cut the gop off.
Yeah, too many Apolopoulos for mainstream television.
But that happened all over the world, I think, particularly after the wars. People would migrate to countries, and especially in America.
That's right.
People changed their names to become American. Was it even harder because of the fact that your family were Italian?
They were Italian too, and they're also trying to blend in and try not to be noticed. It's like Jews in Germany or something. We're not here, right? And that's a weird thing to put on a creative individual, because the whole point of being creative is to try to do something unique.
So did anyone in your family encourage you musically? Were they musical at all? Or? No?
I could write a book about this, but let me just sum it up. My dad paid for accordion lessons when I was small. When the accordion teacher guy came to the door, and they were doing it door to door. So I said, "Would you want to play the accordion?" I was about that big, about 2 feet tall, and I said, "Okay, yeah, great." But then the accordion lesson turned out to be on at the same time as Zorro, which is my favorite TV show. So I'd always been pretending I was sick and everything so I could watch Zorro. So eventually that didn't work out, so I had to get the accordion back. And then nothing happened until I went to college. And when I went to college, I started, my roommate in college was a musician and had this rhythm and blues band, and I started playing his guitar in the dorm room, right, plug it into the reverb and space it out. And eventually I got really good. I had an aptitude for it. So I learned how to play solos to a couple things like Mr. Tambourine Man, all and turned it into birdsong. And so my roommate was impressed. He said, "Would you like to come and sit in and play those solos in our show, because our guitars can't play
them." Yeah.
So I'd come up and sit in and just sit there in a chair and play the guitar solo.
Sit there and wait.
Eventually that kid dropped out, and I got in. I became the lead guitarist, and then I started playing electric blues harp, which I became really good at. I could just blow the place apart with electric blues harp playing. Like Paul Butterfield was my guy, and so those two instruments were my main instruments. And I was a solo. I could play all the Hendrix stuff by heart. I could play all the blues stuff, Muddy Waters. I got to play with Muddy Waters once when he came to Cleveland. He said, "Any good blues harp players out there?" And I raised my hand. He said, "Come on up." And I got to play with him with 5 songs.
He didn't audition you first?
No. Man, once he heard it, he liked it, because I knew what I was doing, And we had a great time. And so then gradually I worked my way up through the music thing until I got to be a good guitarist. I found myself a an ordinary guitar, and I made it into a 9-string by cutting, more grooves in it, put more strings on it. I made my own inventions, right? So I took this guitar home from college. No, because I made it up. I wanted the top 3-string, 6 strings, like a 12-string, and the bass string, so I could bend them and do blues runs on them, right? It was just this weird thing. So I took it home, and I was up in my room at home. My dad was sleeping downstairs. I'm playing it with unplugged in, just you could hardly hear it. And I hear this stomping up the stairs, right? My father, I'd woken him up. He was so mad, and he just did not want me to be a musician. He wanted me to be an architect. He grabbed the guitar, and he just snapped it in half over his leg and threw it down, and then walked out, right? That was the kind of encouragement I got as a kid to be a musician. It was like, I have to do this because I know this is the only way I'm going to get away. Put up a wall between me and these people. Even though I loved them, there was no communication on what I really wanted to do. Met this dancer from Australia, and we got married, had a couple of kids, and then we just...
Oh, over there?
Yeah, in Berkeley. And then we moved here. Actually, I came to see you. The very first, I think, music act I ever saw was you with a band with Jeff Cox was playing drums. It was some little...
At the Armadale Hotel?
And it was a tiny little space. He used to do, take me to the river. And I used to come to Jeff Cox and say, can I sit in and play blues harp? And he'd say, fuck you. He's just too hard. He just treated me like shit. He was really arrogant.
Bet he wouldn't now.
Well, I understand his personality now. I understand. Nah, you guys were good. I remember thinking, wow, this is, I was really, guys, I had a highly tuned sense of what I thought music should be about. And I mean, Jeff Cox was a great drummer.
Oh, but really, I must say the band was a really good band, but we didn't get paid much either. You know what we got? Free drinks.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
That was the end of it.
Pass the glass.
Oh, that's good.
So that was the first, what a coincidence we should be doing this now. That I forgot all about that. That was the very first thing.
Well, there you go.
I came ass backwards into the music scene with Shut Up Your Face, and mainly through Mike Brady, because no one else considered it music. And to this day, most of the people in the rock world don't consider it music. I mean, I am telling you that I have lived on the fringe of that world. And now I'm kind of on the fringe of the poetry world because they don't consider me a real poet either because I'm a musician. And once you got Shut Up Your Face, you're not a real anything. You know what I mean?
They'll eat their words.
But it's good. Leave me alone. Leave me alone, and I can do stuff. It's like I don't need the peer pressure anymore. I don't need it because I've learned to live without it all my life.
All your life you've done it. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, let's talk about how you actually did meet Mike Brady and how tough it was for anyone. To get anyone's attention.
Yeah,
because you really did. I know, it is. We'll be back very soon.
Wrokdown.
Welcome back to Wrokdown. My special guest is Joe Dolce, and we are just... well, actually, we're eating sweets here, but Joe, tell us how you eventually started to knock on doors, and I know it was a very long, hard trip for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it still is. But there was like a great tsunami of success there, which is fantastic to know how that works, because it happens very quickly, And in this world, it can happen really quickly all the time for anyone. It's just a question of getting all the ducks in line, right? Because this world is a marketing machine at the moment. Mm-hmm. This is why art suffers, because they're looking for things that are already done that they can sell. No one's really interested in developing things. Like, those days are gone. Now what people are looking for is something that's already done. They want you to develop it in small studios or small recording studios, and then if it works, then they'll market it and you'll make a ton of money. But I was doing like 1, 2, sometimes 3 acoustic shows a night around the Carlton, Fitzroy, Richmond area, doing all the little clubs like the Flying Trapeze, and Last Laugh, and not music venues, mostly...
That comedy, or cabaret comedy.
But I didn't do stand-up. What I did is a combination of a talking Italian accent. I was the manager, and I brought on my American star, Big Joe Texas. It was like George Bush, and he played country music. And then I brought on my manager, Giuseppe. He'd bring out, I got a new act. He's a sensitive, and he's a songwriter named Joe Dolce. And then I just be myself and sing my songs, right? Which were basically, I was shy, I'd close my eyes, and I just be myself. I didn't know how to perform very well, out of character.
Out of character. Yeah.
And then I'd come back as Giuseppe and say, he wasn't bad, but I'm going to tell him, why don't you open your eyes when you talk? And it's, you're never going to get on the Don Lane show if you don't look in the camera. Don't you think he's too shy? And the people say, no, we like him like that. And I get in all these debates with the audience about my real self, which I thought was my real self. But anyway, I create, that was like a therapy thing or something. But the closest thing it could come to was those comedy venues, right? So then we got some money together. I met Chris Lofven, the great film clip maker,
who made everyone's fabulous.
He's a great bass player too. And we formed a little trio. We used to play together.
How did you end up with Mike Brady?
Well, I recorded the track in Flagstaff first. Chris was there and he was giving me some tips because he had more experience than I did. Mike heard the recording when it was finished remixing it, and he said, "That's great." He didn't see the clip, so he took the record, the track, so asked her liked it, and then no one would play it except one morning breakfast show somewhere, and I don't even remember which. Mike would know that, but created a grassroots thing. People were ringing in all day wanting to hear this song. And so then it started to spread around other radio stations like that, and eventually it was being played around all these type of shows. And then I'd taken it to Don Lane. He told me to get out. He didn't want to talk to me. I took it to Molly. He walked out of the room.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. And here's the funny thing. I was trying to be really clever, and I said, in this theater world I work with Molly's brother, Rob, who's an actor, right? And I said, he looks like Molly. Why don't we get Rob to wear a beret and mime the accordion? And then when Molly sees his brother in it, he'll remember this. So Chris said, good idea, let's do that. So we got Rob to wear the accordion. He's playing the accordion wearing the beret.
Is that Molly's brother?
Yeah.
Well, look at
so it's sitting there on the screen in the countdown office, and I'm sitting there next to, I don't know who I'm sitting next to, but all of a sudden Molly walks in. He steps there for 5 minutes, looks at it, sees his brother, and walks out. And they passed, right? And they didn't want it either. So it was only until the radio, and I took it, Don Lane rejected it, right? So then suddenly this one radio station started playing it on high rotation. Everyone was hearing it. And I went to a gig out somewhere in the boondocks somewhere to just do my normal set, I think I was playing in between somebody else and, getting $50 or something. And when I sang Shaddap, everyone knew it in the audience. They all sang along for the first word. And I went, how's that possible? Because I didn't realize what radio did in those days. Everyone listened to the radio. So Don Lane came on his show. I was watching Don Lane. He said, we're going to have Joe Dolce on the show next week. He didn't even ask me. He just rejected it. And he was already announcing I'm going to be on the show without even asking. So I knew something wrong was going on then, and Mike was saying, look, no more $50 shows.
But were you ever frustrated that in the feeling that if you played anything else, everyone was just waiting to hear that song?
Yeah, and I tried.
Did it start to get on your nerves? I know it sounds weird.
Well, it wasn't time, really, because the thing is, just when I was starting to get frustrated in Australia, then I was hitting France, so I had to get on the plane and go to France. And then when France started to hit, so did Germany, England, Austria, literally all those countries. And so tours were set up just to hit all the top radio, all the top television shows. Had nothing to do with anything else. So I didn't even get fees. All I got first-class airfares and accommodation.
Did it happen in the States?
Well, a funny thing about the States, too, we had the same problem in the States. So I had a #1 hit in New York and LA at the same time. We had sold like 3.5 million copies in America. It only takes 1 million to get a #1 hit. It only takes 1 million. So 3.5 million copies, and still it wasn't charting nationally. It was only charting in like popcorn. Huh. And then gradually the South started to come up. But by then New York and LA were going down, right? And I found out from the record company, these guys were all stoned on coke. I mean, it was amazing. It was one of those kind of record companies that besides the ripping off and the mafia and the cutouts and all the ways people were getting money on this without paying us, there was this, in the South in America, there was this thing about novelty songs. They didn't want that image associated with their rock and roll programming, because they felt that if they got the novelty image, it would alienate their sponsors and they'd lose advertising. So they'd play this song, but they'd never report it, so it would never show up on their charts. So we were selling records, but we weren't getting charts.
Well, look, there's a lot more to Joe Dolce than just shut up your face, which you've been trying to tell people for a very long time now. Just before we go to a break, how many copies did it sell worldwide?
6 million. And in Australia, it sold over 350,000.
Which is massive for Australia.
But it's still the most successful Australian-produced single in history, and it's held that record for 33 years straight. So, like, someone might come up tomorrow and break it, let's say. Someone from X Factor, one of those shows, I don't even know.
I don't think so.
But they could. But they're going to take them 34 years to break the second record, which means that'll be in what, 2040?
6 million. Hey, did you show your dad your bank balance?
I bought him a DVD player when I went home in the good times, and he liked that. I don't think he ever figured out how to work it. But
is your dad still?
No, they both passed away.
Passed away, yeah. But they saw the success.
Yeah, but they thought I was more successful when I had a song recorded by this guy Jonathan Edwards, and they were taking around his album saying, "This is my son's record." They used to say that this guy was me because he did my song. And then when Shaddap came, it was like, well, my mom had posters, in the basement, where they'd have them on the walls.
We'll be back really soon.
Wrokdown.
Welcome back to Wrokdown. I'm with Joe Dolce. 6 million copies of one song. And shut up your face. Now look, I know that I've heard people say that they get sick of talking about one particular thing, but I mean that was massive. And I know that you actually recorded many more songs, but you write. And at the moment, I believe you are writing poetry?
Poetry, essays, and song lyrics, and songs. I'm still writing songs, but I'm not performing at the moment. I haven't recorded since 2007. I've got enough. Well, see, I've had this funny dream for the last couple of years, which is to cross that barrier between what's called poetry and song lyrics, but not like Bob Dylan or Leonard Cohen or the people that sing songs, but something that could stand as a poem in a book of poetry without even knowing that it was a song. Something that's so authentically a poem, written closer to the style of the old ballads that Keats and they used to write back in those days when basically they rhymed and things. Nowadays we're into modern poetry, and there's a really big difference between a song lyric and a poem. So what I've been trying to do for the last couple of years is write song lyrics that stand as poems. So you don't even have to know the music. People who've never heard the music would still say that, what a great poem. And then you hear the song and you go, what a great song.
And where do you see the forum for these?
Well,
for these pieces?
I don't see a market for it. What I see is it's my own personal. It's going back to pre-Shaddap Buffet's days when I was a pop musician and playing guitar and blues harp and singing the great songs with my band, Headstone Circus, of Dylan songs and Cohen songs and Gorn Life and all these brilliant songs that used to exist back in the early 70s. My brain, even though I'm recognized in some way as an 80s artist because of Shaddap Buffet, my brain is still back in that period as a musician, right? And the only way I can improve, I can stay in that zone, is by trying to go further than all those artists did. Now, it doesn't matter if the public recognizes it. What matters is that I recognize it.
Yeah.
I got to know that it works. So, luckily, a couple of years ago, I ran into a poet in Australia named Les Murray. Now, Les Murray is probably recognized as Australia's greatest poet internationally. He's up there with Banjo Patterson, and he'll be the Henry Lawson of our generation.
Yeah.
And, Les just happened to like my work, and I sent him one thing, and he published it in his magazine, which is called Quadrant. So I've been sending him stuff every month. Now, in the last 2 years, Les has published 60 of my poems, and including that 60, there's 25 song lyrics that he has never heard the music to. So we got Australia's greatest poet publishing 25 song lyrics as poems. I'm getting, all you need, they say all you need is one person out there as an advocate who understands what you're doing at the level you're doing it at to keep going. You need some kind of reinforcement from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
It can't always be you living in a cave. So my partner Lynn has been my strongest supporter for 30 years, right? But when Les Murray came around, who's 10 years older than me, he now gave me a chance to validate this material as terms of poetry. I don't need the rock industry and the pop industry anymore to tell me that it's a good poem, because they don't know, right? They're too busy selling whatever they're selling. What I'm doing is I found a real poet who's really good, who says, this is a real poem, I'm going to publish it, so I'm going to put this in the best of quadrant poetry. Now he's put two songs in there.
It's really an honor, isn't it?
Well, it's an honor, and no one's ever done it. No musician in history has ever done this. No songwriter. Bob Dylan, Leonard Cohen, none of them have ever had, because they've all been too well known. No one can listen to a Dylan song without hearing the music. Do you know what I mean? You don't ever get a bunch of lyrics to look at. The closest to it would be, when Billy Bragg did Woody Guthrie's album, he took all those old song lyrics. They were sitting in a folder that Woody Guthrie had written that he hadn't recorded, and there was no music to them. So Billy Bragg took these lyrics and set them to music and made them into songs, but they worked first on the page, right? That's what I've done now. I've created a body of work that works on the page first, and then whether it works as songs or not depends on whether people like the music. But I've achieved my goal in the last 2 years by fortunately finding a few poets out there to help me as editors in a kind of way. So it's really and also he's taking poems too, and now I'm getting poems published everywhere.
Well, I would love to see you perform your poetry. And it's been lovely having you on the show, Joel. And you're taking us out with a film clip. Could you please intro the film clip and explain what's going on?
Okay, well, this is a song called Dead Cat Bounce. And Dead Cat Bounce has to do with the stock market thing. When the stock market's falling and then it suddenly goes up again, everyone thinks, I'm going to get in there, and then they all spend their money and then it drops. That's called a dead cat bounce, because they think it's going to bounce and it doesn't bounce. So I wrote a song, a very poetic rock and roll song called Dead Cat Bounce. It got published in Quadrant magazine as a poem, and then I got a few musicians together, Joe Crichton, people that play with Joe Camilleri, and we just did a recording of it. And rather than put myself in the clip, I found one of my friends is a really good go-go style dancer. I got her to do the dance. So there's a lot of hair solos and there's a lot of slow motion, and basically you have a lot more fun watching her than watching me. And
well, we're going to take it away with the Dead Cat Bounce. Good night, Wrokdown. Good night, Joe.
Okay. Good night.
Hey.
When your blue chip is looking much bluer, baby, and your speculative has just about lost its life, and you buying in at the bottom, man, just like trying to catch a falling knife.